ever. Ed Warder comes out this morning, veteran NFL reporter, now with WFAA in Dallas, and says, quote, regarding Deion Sanders, I'm being told that he would almost certainly accept if Jerry Jones offers to make him the next Cowboys head coach. Those around him are encouraging him to pursue it, and Jerry Jones is enamored with the idea. James, as this saga goes on, started on Tuesday night with Jordan Schultz, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport. Now you've got Ed Warder today. Jane Slater has added some context that we'll get to as well. I think it's becoming more and more real that Deion Sanders is the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I think it's more real than it was a week ago when Mike McCarthy was still in the mix and hadn't been let go, and they were turning him down for interviews with the Bears, and it kind of felt like maybe he'd stay. Like, it's more real than that, but you could find somebody close to me who's encouraging me to take that job if offered. And you know what? If it was offered to me, I'd take it. So I'm not saying those aren't true, those comments, but like, well, what does that really mean? That Jerry Jones is enamored with the idea?
Yes.
Okay, that's now both sides are interested. Enamored with an idea is a lot different than, hey, we're going to go this direction. So I'm not saying there's no truth to it, not saying both parties aren't interested, but I want to hear that he's officially interviewed. I want to know who else is interviewed for it. I want this process to get a little bit further than just rumor mill, because you're dealing with two individuals, Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders, who love attention, know how to market themselves, know how to keep themselves in the news cycle. Here we are, 2 days from the start of divisional round of the NFL playoffs. We're talking about a team that didn't make it, and we're talking about a college football team that didn't make the playoffs. So they're both master marketers, and they've done their jobs again. I just want it to – I need to see something more official than rumors, and I quite frankly, I don't care who's reporting it, because the things they say, both of those things from both camps can be true, and there's still absolutely nothing to the idea that it's actually going to happen. You could be enamored with an idea. It doesn't mean you're going to go down that path when you actually start thinking about it and looking at it. You're enamored with the idea, but you could look at the practicality of it and go, that ain't going to work. And somebody could be interested in a job if it was offered to him, and it could never be offered to him. So I just think there was some careful wording going on in that in that statement.
I love it. You come out swinging like you always do, but let me give you some pushback on a couple of things. First of all, unfortunately, James, I have checked the odds makers, and your name is not on the list.
What?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Whereas Deion Sanders is even money. He is the favorite. And I get it. They want action on all sides, and they want people to bet on Deion, and then Deion's not the coach. But we're not talking about Deion some plus 2,000 long shot. He's literally even money to be the next head coach of the Cowboys. I think we've learned over the years to pay attention to the odds makers. What say you on that?
Yeah, that certainly is something that factors into the equation when it comes to worry. They typically, have a pretty good sense of how these things are going to go. So, yeah, okay. I just would be interested a year ago right now. Who was the favorite, or 2 years ago, who was the favorite to become the Broncos head coach? It wasn't Sean Payton. Now, he was on the list, but it was probably Jim Harbaugh. And if you'd have said at that point that Jim Harbaugh, if offered the job, would take it, and people around him are encouraging him to take it, and Greg Penner is enamored with the idea, all of that might have been true. But then it turned out, well, he wanted to stay there and finish the job at Michigan, and things changed. So I haven't studied the odds. Who's the favorite to be the next Bears coach? Who's the favorite to be the next? What other job is open? Throw that one out there. And
Jacksonville's open.
Okay, well, who's the favorite to be the next Jacksonville?
I don't know, but even still, Dante has let me know that within the last 24 hours. Kellen Moore has actually passed Deion Sanders. So these things are fluid. Kellen Moore is minus 140. Deion's plus 150. Robert Saleh plus 300. Ben Johnson plus 475, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. And look, there's something to it. I'm not totally dismissing it at all. And, those are probably the top candidates. And, based on the rumor mill, they're gonna change a little bit. So he's on the list, and he's high on the list, whether he's first or second. And if you're a Buffs fan, which I am, that is a major concern. So, we'll see how it plays out, but I'm not going to panic until there's something official, until he's interviewed for the job, other people have interviewed for the job. He's not just going to get it based on phone conversations and they're people talking and both of them are interested in the idea and think it would be cool. That's not how it's going to go down.
See, that's where I disagree with you, though. And I thought Zach brought up an excellent point that where Jim Harbaugh was in the hiring cycle a few years ago with the Vikings, he basically told him, give me the job. I'm not interviewing. Either give me the job or I'm going back to Michigan. The Vikings said, nope, we're going to do interviews. I think Jerry Jones is just wacky enough, and I mean that as endearingly as I possibly can. I think he's just wacky enough to not interview anyone. And I think Deion Sanders has a big enough ego to say, I'm Deion Sanders. I'm Coach Prime. I'm not going through your interview process. Either hire me or don't. And I definitely could see Deion pulling that card. I don't think Deion's just getting in line with the other 7 candidates. I think Deion is so proud of Deion, and rightfully so. He's had a great career as a player and a coach, that he's going to tell Jerry, I'm either your guy or I'm not, but I'm not going to sit here and walk into your boardroom so that Kellen Moore can walk in 2 hours later. That doesn't seem like Deion Sanders' style to me, James.
I think to some extent, yes, right? Like, I'll go last, interview all your other people. If you're still interested in me, let me know. I don't think he wants to go through the quote-unquote embarrassment of interviewing for the job officially and not getting it. I'll put it that way. So that part of it, I understand. And I mentioned this on Coffee Break today at noon with Richie. Look at Deion Sanders' career and look at what he's done post-career. He's a bit of a vagabond. He never puts down deep roots. He was in Atlanta. He was in San Francisco. He was in Dallas. He was in Washington. He was in Baltimore. He didn't flirt. He played baseball with the Braves and the Reds. That's a lot of different cities that I just named during his professional sports career. He was on NFL Network. He did the Prime Academy. He went to Jackson State. Has he been anywhere for more than 3 or 4 years?
No, that seems like you're right. He gets impatient. And when he talks in November about his kickstand is down, well, your kickstand's never been down. So should I take you all that seriously that your kickstand is finally down at this phase of your life? And again, I don't blame people. I've had many different jobs in this Denver market. That's just sort of sometimes how life works. But I do think that the people who just want to talk about, well, guys, he told us in November his kickstand's down. James, I'm going to pat us both on the back here. You and I raised this possibility, 2.5 months ago?
Yeah.
And I think we were the only ones in town talking about, hey, if Jerry Jones calls, that's an X factor. Well, guess what's happened? Jerry Jones called.
As a motorcycle guy, the kickstand analogy, not to overthink it, but listen, if it's wintertime and I got the kickstand down in the garage, it's going to stay there a while. If I drove to the store to grab some milk, it's the same kickstand, right? That doesn't mean it's staying there permanent. Right. So it means you're parked there for now. And for now it implies that there is going to be a time when the kickstand goes up. I very well think this could be it. I think Deion is constantly looking for the next challenge. I think Deion is he's a little bit of a grass is always greener. I think he's also smart enough to know, hey, I've taken it as far as I can with the Falcons. I've done as much as I can with the Niners. I've done as much as I can with the Cowboys. Get out before it's too late. So if you're Deion and you're looking at this, Will, he's 9-4. He's a hot commodity. He's got a chance to be the Cowboys head coach. You go back to CU. Yeah, maybe in not 2025, but 2026, you go 11-2 with Juju as your starter, and you're in the playoff, and you're a hot commodity again. Maybe. Or it could be you're never going to be a hot commodity again. He is sort of the master of striking while the iron is hot. There's an art form to that. A lot of people, and I don't mean this as a criticism when I say he strikes while the iron is hot, because a lot of people have lead feet, right? Like they don't want to move. They're comfortable where they're at. It's relocating. It's moving the kids. It's, finding new schools. It's a new house. He has no problem with any of that, clearly, because he's lived in 20 different places. So some people are just comfortable living out of a suitcase. Some people are comfortable never, figuring out exactly how they need to do certain things at their house because that season never came around while they lived there. And he's that guy. It's a little bit of an admirable trait to some extent, but it all lends to the fact that he's not going to be in Boulder until 2030. I'll put it that way. I don't think that's happening. So if he thinks right now his stock is as high as it's going to get, and Jerry Jones giving him $20 million or some crazy offer per year, that'd be pretty hard to top. So I'm not going to begrudge him if he takes it. I'll just be bummed as a Buffs fan. That's all.
And Ed Warder put this tweet out at 8:41 this morning. Great producing from our guys here at The Fan to get him on with Stokely and Evans and Mark Schlereth. Here was Ed Warder on The Fan this morning on why Jerry Jones may want Deion Sanders.
I think the reaction I've gotten from a simple tweet would explain what Jerry Jones would get out of this deal. Just a massive amount of attention. Like no other hire would be easier for him to sell to his fan base. No other hire would make Jerry Jones more money or create more attention around the Cowboys and allow Jerry to be a central figure in that daily drama than hiring Deion Sanders, who played here for 5 years and won a Super Bowl with this franchise.
I mean, it's a great answer from Ed, and James, I'll give you credit. It's what you were hinting at earlier. Jerry's an egomaniac, and what did Ed mention twice in that answer? Attention. This is providing a lot of attention on Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. It's made everyone forget about Mike McCarthy and whether he did him wrong or not. Like, no one's thinking about Mike. They're all thinking about Deion. They're all thinking about Jerry. You're right. It reminds me of 2007, Rockies and Red Sox about to play in the World Series. And what happened? Alex Rodriguez signed like the biggest deal in MLB history with the Yankees and totally hijacked the spotlight. That's what Jerry's doing before the greatest weekend in the NFL, besides the Super Bowl, in terms of the divisional round with, in theory, 4 unbelievable games ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, the news cycle in the middle of the week, unless you're in one of those towns that's playing, it gets a little bit stale. So the media plays into this too, right? We all want something to talk about. This is juicy. We're talking about it in our first segment. So that's just how it works. It's also interesting, though, if you look at Jerry Jones's history of hiring coaches, he's had a couple of high-profile ones, but the rest have all kind of been, hey, I want to be the star here, right? So Jimmy Johnson was a splashy hire, but he got rid of him as soon as Jimmy was, battling him for the credit. So you
more
almost
famous
have to go,
than Jerry, yes.
Yes, exactly. So you almost have to go post Jimmy Johnson. Who's he hired? Barry Switzer, big name, but he was out of coaching, right? Like nobody else was looking at Barry Switzer. He just brought him in to, keep the train on the tracks. Chan Gailey, Dave Campo. Now here's the big one. Bill Parcells, that's a splash. Wade Phillips, retread. Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy. So typically speaking, other than Parcells, he's hired guys where he's the star. He's the big personality. Barry Switzer at that point in his career was perfectly content to let Jerry go out and have press conferences and interviews. He didn't care. He wanted to drive around in his golf cart and have the cushy job and, be the head coach of the Cowboys. He kind of, played it to the hilt. So it would be it would be a vast departure from what he's done in the past, because you bring in Prime. He's maybe a bigger star than Jerry. Now, Jerry's been there a long time, so we'll see how that dynamic plays out. But, man, I don't know if at the end of his run here, and I'm not trying to be morbid, but Jerry Jones doesn't have 20 more years as the owner of the Cowboys. Does he really want to just pass the spotlight on to a guy with no NFL head coaching experience and maybe have his last hire be something that everybody laughs at if it turns into a bust? I don't know. It's a gamble, and he's a gambler. He's an oil spectator, so he's a gambler at heart. But that just seems like one that goes against his nature. Yeah,
and as Ed Werder says, he is enamored with the idea. The other wrinkle in all this, James, is Deion goes on Good Morning America last week and says he'll only coach his sons. I heard Zach and Phil talking about it, and they don't think there's any way that Deion could take the Dallas job and coach Shedeur. And I'm driving down the road going, guys, he's only taking the Dallas job if he coaches Shedeur. Do you think Deion and Shedeur are a package deal to the Cowboys? And we can get into the logistics of how that would get done with them picking 12 and the Prescott contract and a potential trade and the dead cap and cut and all that. But when Deion wants stuff done, he generally gets it done. My gut is there's no way Deion Sanders takes this job unless Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys next year.
I think you're right, but you can't control things when it's a draft. You can't control things when there's a salary cap to the extent you can in college. Like, you can just go recruit somebody and they hop in the portal and they're coming to your school. Like, there's nothing to ensure parity in college football. It's quite the opposite. So, could it happen? I guess it could. Does he want it to happen? Yeah, but he can't dictate that. So, what pick do the Cowboys have? I don't have it in front of me.
They're at 12. They're at 12.
Okay, so maybe Shedeur falls to 12. I mean,
or maybe they tell those 11 teams in front of them, do not draft him, or the headache we create for you will not be worth it.
Okay, but
and the GMs look around and go, I can't blow a premium pick at number 4 on Shedeur when they've told me headaches when Travis Hunter is still on the board. I'll just take Travis Hunter. Like, I think Deion has that kind of power that he could convince those other 11 NFL GMs, just pass, because it's in your best interest to pass.
I don't think he does. And the reason being, there's 2 famous examples of quarterbacks forcing their way to two franchises, right?
And they both got their way.
They both got their way, but teams didn't just go, I'll pass. I mean, Ernie Accorsi was the GM of the Baltimore Colts, and John Elway, and particularly Jack Elway, made it abundantly clear that John was not going to play in Baltimore for Frank Kush. And Ernie Accorsi took John Elway number 1. He's like, I'm not going to be the guy who passes on John Elway. So the Broncos had to trade for him and give up, the Chris Hinton, who they took at number 4, who's a Ring of Fame offensive lineman for the Colts, Mark Herman, another number 1. I forget what exactly the package was, but the Colts didn't just go, okay, and we'll just take somebody else. They didn't. They got some compensation for it. And same with the Chargers. They took Eli Manning. There's pictures of Eli Manning up there with Paul Tagliabue in his Chargers hat or holding up his Chargers jersey or whatever they were doing.
Looking like someone kicked his puppy, if
Correct.
I remember correctly.
I mean, it's like Kobe in the Hornets gear, right? Like, it's the same kind of deal. There aren't 11 teams that are just going to go, oh, okay, we'll take the next guy on our list. They're going to say, pound sand. You want him? Fine. We're going to take him and send us 2 number 1s. So if you're the Cowboys, are you going to use your first-round pick plus other draft capital to get up and get this guy? Then you got to deal with the Dak Prescott situation. No trade clause, huge contract, dead cap. Like, the practicality of it is why I think the word enamored is important. Enamored is like, hey, that sounds great. What a dream that would be. Yeah, I'm enamored with the idea of moving to Key West and Tendon Bar. I ain't doing it.
I'll go with you. That sounds kind of nice.
I mean, because it's like, all the practicality of that, right? Like, it just isn't feasible. I think that's what kind of comes into play here.
Oh, man. You're cracking me up. All right, but the other thing in this, though, James, is I keep hearing, well, Dak's got a no-trade clause. Guys, if Deion comes to town and tells Dak, you're benched, my son's playing, pretty sure Dak's going to waive that no-trade clause in a heartbeat. That's the one I can't wrap my mind around, too, is these people think Dak's going to dig his heels in. Why? So he can go sit on the bench in what, in theory, is the prime of his career? Dak would want the heck out of town. Dak wants no part of this circus. Dak would waive that thing instantly.
Okay, which you're probably right, and maybe Dak is part of the trade, right? If you're Tennessee or some of these teams that are ahead of him that are probably going to take a quarterback, I mean, you could do a lot worse than Dak Prescott. There's the odds that the guy you draft is going to be as good as Dak aren't very good.
No.
So maybe you take that. Now, the contract and who gets the dead cap and how much of it the Cowboys eat and all that would be part of it that you'd have to figure out. And he'd obviously have to waive the no-trade clause. But I think you said something interesting there. He's going to say, I want no part of this circus. Now, the circus is different for him because he's the quarterback and Deion's bringing in his son. He's in the middle ring of the 3-ring circus.
Yeah, he's the QB that's getting benched in all of this.
I get that. But everybody else in that organization, they may not be in the center ring, but they're under the tent, right? They're part of the circus. And that's just another reason, like, you would think that at some point somebody's going to tell Jerry Jones, hey, look, the guy's done a great job at CU. He's a great marketer. He's a great personality, but I don't know that works in the NFL. I think that's a very realistic way of looking at it. Plus, for the most part, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since 1995. They're still, I'll be at the gym in the morning. I'll be walking in the office, whatever, when ESPN is on or, Breakfast Ball is on. It seems like every time I look up, they're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. They don't need any help getting attention. So, CU needed prime. The Tennessee Titans would need prime. Do the Dallas Cowboys really need to bring the circus to town? No. It's like bringing the circus to New York City. There's plenty else to do. You don't need it. You need it in North Platte, Nebraska. I don't see it as a fit.
Yeah, but I think you're giving Jerry too much credit that he doesn't like the circus. I mean, I think Jerry's favorite thing is the circus. Like, Jerry's the guy who we've talked about this, he does interviews after every game. And those poor Dallas reporters can't go talk to players, can't go talk to coaches because they got to be one of the 37 people with a mic in front of him in the tunnel. How many interviews after games this year did Greg Penner do? 0. How many did Stan Kroenke do? 0. Jerry likes the attention. Jerry likes the circus. And when you got a big circus, what do you want to do? You want to add another tent. And Deion would be adding another tent. I think there's zero consideration. I get what you're saying. People within the organization wouldn't like it. Well, guess what? Their opinion doesn't matter. Only one guy's opinion matters. And the guy whose opinion matters, he loves having the elephants and the trapeze people and all that. And Deion would come be a part of it, and he'd build another tent. And it's what Ed told us 10 minutes ago when we played the clip. This is attention for Jerry.
Oh, no doubt. And, and I don't mean any of these things as negative, right? I just think they're factual when you're looking at Jerry Jones's personality. He's an egomaniac, for sure. He's a riverboat gambler, for sure. He's willing to, go against the grain and defy conventional wisdom. He did it when he bought the Dallas Cowboys and people told him it was a bad idea. That team was losing $1 million a month when he bought them, right? Which sounds like, that ain't much now in the world of pro sports. That was a lot of money back in 1988, and
Sure.
there was no real way of turning it around. And he did by doing things like, making Pepsi the official sponsor of Texas Stadium, even though Coke was the official sponsor of the league, and that ruffled feathers and, kind of recreated. The reason he's in the Hall of Fame has more to do with how he recreated the business of professional football than what he did with the Cowboys on the field. And his record on the field is pretty good, but he literally reinvented how teams market themselves, how the league markets itself, how they divide revenues and all the rest of those things. So he'll go against the grain. And, that's what makes this a wild card, I guess is kind of the best way I would look at it. Like, do I really think the Maras are going to bring him in to coach the New York Giants? I don't. Because of all the reasons we've explained. Like, there's more chance that it blows up in your face than it's a huge success. Not zero chance it's a huge success, but it's just, come on. But you're dealing with the NFL's biggest wild card here. Two guys that, would they not both just love up there grinning at the introductory press conference? Talk about a circus. You always talk about the confetti test, right? Can you picture the confetti falling on this quarterback's head or this head coach's head after Super Bowl? It ain't hard to picture that introductory press conference, is it?
No, not at all.
It's like
it'd be on every TV in America, right?
They might interrupt like regular programming on like ABC to show.
Yeah, like special breaking news, Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders intro press conference. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Let's close with this on this segment. I told Cello on Tuesday, so maybe I'm just ahead of the curve, that I thought it was a 60% chance Deion was gone. And then Dante gets in my ear and goes, well, everyone on the station is saying like 5% chance he's gone. I'm like, I don't care. I think it's 60. After all this stuff today, James, I'm going to 75. I think there's only a 25% chance Deion Sanders stays in Boulder. To me, it looks like he wants out. He's got a circle telling him it's a great opportunity, and you only get one chance in your entire lifetime to coach the Dallas Cowboys. I'm more convinced than ever this is going to happen. I'm curious your odds handicapping it.
I think it's about 50-50. I think it's a coin flip, and if you'd asked me a week ago, I'd have said 10% chance. So
you would have been like everyone else on the station.
I've moved a lot. I think it's a coin flip, and I think it's just because – does it make football sense? Probably not. It probably doesn't.
No.
But does it make sense for two guys who just want to be the story? And if it doesn't work, neither one of them cares. They don't care. The ultimate just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and act like nothing happened, right? Both of them have had plenty of failures in their life. Nobody ever talks about their failures. They just talk about their successes because of the way they deal with it. And if it works, we'll all be so tired of hearing from Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders. We'll want to change the channel at every turn. So I think the parties involved and the wild card factors and the gambler and all the rest of it, I think it makes it a coin flip, which if you're a Buffs fan, you're checking to see if it's both sides of the coin have heads on it.
Yeah, fascinating conversation we could get in the coming days of what this would mean for the CU Buffs, and I can promise you it would be nothing good. As a Buffs fan myself, I'm not rooting for it. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. Don't forget, Denver Sports is on YouTube if you want to check us out there, and we would love